Welcome, Dr. Mathews.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Tell us a little bit about you.
I am the director of the Career and Internship Center at the University of Baltimore. I work with adult learners who are trying to enter the workforce, who are seeking social mobility, who are trying to improve themselves and their families. And I love the work that I do. I am also the current past president of the fabulous National Career Development Association.
Tell us a little bit about your closing keynote.
First of all, your conference is about mental health. And we will wrap up the day by talking about the emotional toll of unconscious bias. Why? Because when we are working with our clients, they're going to be bringing all of them to us. And that includes emotional and mental health struggles and challenges. And oftentimes we talk about depression and we talk about anxiety and other sorts of challenges, but we don't talk about the root of them. And the fact that for many underrepresented populations, for many BIPOC populations and marginalized groups, there's a toll that comes with being marginalized. There's an emotional toll that comes with facing unconscious bias or discrimination or any of the isms in the workplace. And as career professionals, we want to be able to identify the signs, the emotional and mental health signs, and the struggles of these populations and be able to effectively help them navigate these spaces and places. So I am actually really excited about the fact that California picked the topic of nurturing mental health because it goes right along with the national theme this year, which is all about mental health and career development. And I like this space that we're in as professionals where we're realizing that we don't provide these services in a vacuum, that people come to us with all sorts of struggles and from all walks of life. And we don't want to just help people to find a job, we want people to thrive. And in order for people to thrive, we also have to make sure that they're mentally and emotionally and physically healthy and well. So I'm excited about this topic. So glad for folks who are joining us for this day and happy to wrap up the day by bringing the DE&I lens into the mental health conversation.
I'm really thrilled that you're going to be focused on mental health with the DEI lens because the current political climate our country is in really has, I think, increased the stresses that our students, our clients are facing, especially from the BIPOC community. And so I'm glad that you're going to be closing out our conference talking about that. With that said, what are some key takeaways you're hoping that CCDA members and others that will be joining the call take away from your conversation closing our conference?
Absolutely. One of the things when I give any talk around DE&I and career development that I want folks to take away is that we don't send our clients out into a fair world of work. I feel like we administer the work we do. We talk about it. We train in it. We have theories in career development that don't speak always to the fact that different people experience different things. My being a woman, my being a parent, or my being a person who's differently able or a person who's queer, it's all going to show up differently in the workplace. And I feel like it's time for us to shake things up and address that more in our work so we can really provide authentic career services that really help people navigate the challenges that they will experience. So that is one thing. We do not send our clients out into a fair world of work. A second thing is multicultural competency is needed. And I think it's very much an individual journey. I think we all have to step up and say to ourselves, am I multiculturally competent? Maybe I'm working a career center. Am I serving all of my students? When my clients point out something that I've never heard of before, I don't identify, am I brushing it off or can I really engage? And I think that that's work that we're always doing. I'm always doing that within myself. But if we're going to make sure career development is accessible to all peoples from all walks of life, we have to make sure that we have the competency to embrace people's cultures, to embrace people's differences, to advocate for accessibility and inclusion. So that multicultural competency, I also think is very important. And that's a message that I hope people get from my talk.
Lakeisha, I am once again starstruck. Not gonna lie. Everything you said, I was like, yes. Um, I I did so much reading on DE&I and recruiting and all these different things
Mm,
last year, and I was always in love with this topic, always. But I like needed the necessary learning, and I run into people all the time who say, "Yeah, I'm still learning. I'm not sure what I can do. I'm still learning." So my question to you is, let's pretend you were teaching a class, and there
mhm.
were three books this summer that I could read so that I could be stronger. What would the three books be?
So this is actually going to be an interesting pick. One of the books that changed my life is not necessarily a book about DE&I, it's actually a book about Native Americans. It's called Citizens Creek. I'm a member of a book club called Go On Girl Book Club, and we read authors of every genre, but from the African diaspora. And this book introduced me to the Trail of Tears in a way I was never taught about it in school. And
Wow.
because of that, it angered me to understand such a disenfranchised population with historical scars and hurts that had not been taught to me accurately. I felt like I had not been given a real depiction of what Native Americans and indigenous populations went through in America. And since then, I'm now the chair of the DE&I committee at my university, and we're working on a land acknowledgement, which in no ways fixes what happened to the Native American populations, but it's just part of the work for reconciliation. But that book changed my life. And I want to say the reason also is because sometimes we need to read about people who are different than us. A lot of the times we only read what's on Oprah's list or things that speak to our lives, our gender, our race, our religion, but we don't step outside of that. Pick up a book by an author that is completely not like you. And sometimes it doesn't have to be fiction, it can be nonfiction or either one, but that's a great way to learn. And also you can do that with movies too. So that's one book that really kind of changed my life. There is another book out there, and oh my gosh, I don't remember the name of it right away, but it is a book about African American women and our relationships. And it's a scholar from Johns Hopkins University, and she used Baltimore residents, and it talks about why there is sometimes sort of friction in the African American community between those who have economic status or higher status and those who don't. So classism and racism, which we don't talk about a lot. And I actually read that because when I came to the University of Baltimore, students would come up to me, the Black African American women, and say, I thought you were mean." And I said, what am I giving that people think I'm mean? And it was the blazer. It was my blazer was just throwing them off. And I think it was because they just didn't see a lot of women who were like that. It was a lot going on there. And I just had to dive into that because I had come to a point in my life where I was like, all right, I've made it. I'm making people proud. And my people were not feeling me that way. And I was like, what's going on with this? And it turns out it was classism. So that really helped me to understand this mix of classism and racism. And we have a lot of classism in America, a whole lot of classism. So that's another, if you work with low income, Pell eligible first generation students, really understanding classism can be very insightful. So I can get the name of that one, but that one was really a good one. And right now I'm reading a book about, it's a NASPA book, National Association of Student Affairs Professionals. It is their multicultural competency in higher ed book, and it is proving to be very good. So if you're in the higher ed sector and you want to understand how to see DE&I is more than the diversity office, right? So many campuses and organizations say, oh, we have the DE&I person. Oh, we have the DE&I office.
Yeah.
This work is everywhere, and it should be in everything that we all do. And this book really lays out every piece of higher education administration and how DE&I should be integrated into everything that we do as administrators. So those are three that come to my mind right now.
Thank you, Dr. Mathews. I'm going to check those out.
So, Dr. Mathews, I was listening to what you were saying about, as career professionals, making sure that we're being cognizant of the type of work environments that we're sending our clients out into, and a lot of them are unfair and unsafe. So, speaking to those future employers, what actions can they take to build, nurture, and foster inclusive, a trauma-informed, psychologically safe wellness-centered work environment so that we know that we're sending our clients into safe, welcoming, and affirming environments?
This is such a good question. And I really think many of us, particularly those of us who work in a career space and work with employers, should advocate in this area of creating safe work environments. So the first thing we have to acknowledge, because everybody's not aware, some workplaces are not safe for everyone. And how we really see that showing up right now is people don't want to go back to work after COVID. That's a key indicator that I don't want to go back because I don't feel safe. I feel safer at home where I can kind of have a boundary and control things. So some of the things that I specifically actually do talk to employers about, the first thing I want employers to understand is that diversity is just the first step. It's just a number. Diversity is just who you have in the company. It's the equity and the inclusion piece that really matters. And a lot of companies don't get that. And I'll start with the inclusion piece because people tend to respond to that better than the equity piece. The inclusion piece means everybody feels welcome, everybody feels safe, and everybody feels like they can engage in the workplace. And I have found that a lot of companies can do the D part, the diversity, right? It's easy to come out to a campus, go to a HBCU and recruit and bring people in. The problem is once you get them in your company, is making sure that there's a welcoming environment for them. And companies need to do more work in this area. The second piece is understanding the equity piece. The equity piece is not that everything is accessible to everyone, but everyone really has a fair chance to access resources and opportunity. And a lot of the times, as we know in our culture and what we've seen with Supreme Court decisions very recently, this equity piece is a hot button piece for some folks. And in order for companies to really fix the equity piece, they have to accept that not everyone has the same access. If you don't accept, if you fundamentally don't believe that there's a discrepancy in access, you're not going to get the equity piece. But if you understand that there are systems in place in our culture, in our cities, in our organizations that prevent some people from having access, the same amounts of access to things that other people have because of privilege and power, you won't be able to fix the equity piece. So in recruitment, that might mean that the top school, the Ivy League school in my state is great and they produce great accountants, but I'm going to go to the public school too that has first generation Pell eligible students, because if I don't go there, they may never have the chance to work at a company like mine. The equity piece means that we may need to relook at what professionalism is. We may need to redefine our concept of professionalism, our dress codes. It may also mean that we need to institute training programs because the people that may have the talent may not have had the right experiences to be able to step right into the door and do the job. So that's that equity piece. I think those are really the three things. If I could have the dream of my life, is that companies really understood the difference between diversity, equity, and inclusion. We could take it farther with belonging and access, but if they could just get that DE and I right, we would be in a much better place.
I concur. Thank you so
Yes,
much.
for sure.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so I had a quick question on AI and bias, and some of the anxiety that's creating.
Yes.
So I know that that's kind of very granular, but it's a topical area that there's a lot of trepidation about. So any
Yeah.
kind of insights on that?
So I'm actually reading a book right now. I'm listening to a book. I'm reading the other one. I'm listening to a book called, I just pulled up my Audible, Algorithms of Oppression. It's a heavy one. But this book, the author has done the research to show that most of our search engines are actually discriminatory and biased in the information they pull up about people and how that impacts us all psychologically with the visuals we see when we put in things like Black girls or white girls. Why do we get different types of images and so forth? And also talks about how these things are connected to who builds these systems, and how I think where you could translate, she's talking a lot about Google, but I think where you could translate this to with AI is a learning machine. So AI is going to learn based on who's putting the inputs, right? So if there's more people in the privileged groups putting in the inputs, that's who AI is going to learn from. So this is actually a really great book. If you've never, you could probably catch the author also on some TED Talks and just catch some YouTube videos of the author talking about this. It is
Right.
fascinating. They have tried their best to advocate for Google and some of the other search engines to work on the bias in their searches. And it's been quite the struggle there, because Google also is like, well, it's kind of like free speech, you know how we get into that conversation about free speech and kind of hate speech type of thing. But I think we're going to have the same thing with AI, which is why, where we are with AI right now is you must verify. You must understand. I feel like it's almost, if we remember when Wikipedia first came out and all the teachers
Yeah.
were like, don't quote Wikipedia, don't quote AI.
Yes.
It's a tool. AI is a tool. And just like our search engines have bias in it, it's a machine learning tool. It's also going to have some bias in it as well.
Thank you so much.
Okay, well, let me wrap this up really quickly. Thank you so much, Dr. Mathews. We had a great time talking to you today. We are really, really excited to have you as our keynote speaker in the afternoon of the conference. We can't wait to hear about your talk on the intersection of DEI and mental health, and really providing that authentic career services experiences. Now, if you're interested in attending this conference, the link to the conference registration is in the description. Save the date on your calendars. It's Friday, May 10th, starting at 8:30 in the morning. Come watch our keynotes, our wonderful presenters, and Dr. Mathews will be there helping us end our day. Thank you.